Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on the Road to Rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, take it to the next level and help others who are struggling through dark times. Now, as you know, on the Road to Rediscovery, we are very, very passionate about delivering quality content that is of value to you and your personal growth. If you like what you hear and you wish to support, please visit roadtorediscovery.com/donate. That's rediscovery.com/donate. We'll give you a shout out in a future episode. And as always, there is no obligation. We are truly, truly grateful for your listenership. I have a couple questions for my listeners here. For those of you who have dogs, have you ever looked at your pooch from across the room or maybe out of the kitchen window and asked yourself, like, what in the world is going through his mind? Or how many of you you feel that you are completely aware of how and what your dog thinks about you? And lastly, I want to ask you this. Do you want to not only learn how to determine their moods, but also how to address certain problems such as anxiety, timidness, and aggression? Well, my special guest is a certified professional dog trainer, certified separation anxiety trainer, fear-free professional trainer, and more. And she helps strengthen the relationship between her clients and their dogs, enhancing the lives of both cohesively. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Stephanie Barger to the show. Hey, Stephanie, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here. I'm so I'm excited about tonight.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited about tonight as well, for sure. So, can you first off, can you share with the listeners, is there anything, and if so, what is it that puts dogs above and beyond any other animal when it comes to human interaction? I understand, pet owners don't just have dogs. There's some who have snakes and rabbits and chickens and pigs even, but from a human interaction perspective, what puts dogs, if anything, just above and beyond how they deal with humans versus other animals?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have a long history of modifying dogs to be able to do things in our human world that are of benefit to us.
Hmm.
On top of that, they're extremely receptive to us.
Hmm.
And so that companion animal aspect that is becoming more and more prevalent,
Hmm.
that started off as, helping with the flock, and we still do some of that, but so many dogs are now companion animals, and they're just very receptive to our body language, our moods, and they're great companions to kind of help us do things. We use them. They have different jobs. So I think that their versatility, I think, has a lot to do with it too,
Hmm.
where they can go hiking with us.
Right.
You're not normally going to take your cat or your snake with you hiking.
Right.
And so they can do a lot of activities that we enjoy doing,
Hmm.
and just kind of be our companion as well as helping us out.
Nice. No, that makes a lot of sense, for sure, and the flexibility, right? There's more flexibility that dogs lend to versus a snake or a rabbit, when it
Mhm.
comes to hiking. And we as humans, we have flexible lives.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. That's why it's wonderful that we have so many breeds, because
Hmm.
they are, going to excel at different things. So
Yeah,
one person's lifestyle can still accommodate a dog, where another person's lifestyle would also accommodate a dog. It would be just a very different kind of dog.
I see. So even as an adolescent, those dogs' behaviors can be adjusted, right?
Absolutely.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Oh,
The can't train an old dog new tricks is a wives' tale.
that's
Is
a
an
wise
old
tale,
wives'
right?
tale. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I
yes.
hear you. I hear you 100%. So, outside of, say, the dog's breed or the instincts of a dog, um, what makes a dog uh, what makes a dog aggressive? What makes a dog timid? I mean, does the environment contribute to that? I would imagine.
Yes, the environment will contribute to that.
Hmm.
So will genetics. Just as if some of us are more timid or more of the fight end of the scale,
Hmm.
or more anxious. The same thing can happen with dogs. There's really, some dogs, because of the way that we have bred them, they may
Hmm.
have certain drives, um, and so you may encounter certain behaviors that may or may not be helpful
Right.
because, for example, herding dogs, they love to put things in order,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if it moves, it must be, kept, you know, herded.
Yeah.
So you're working against that instinct. So some of it is genetics, some of it is their experiences, some of it is your training.
Right.
Um, so it's very much a combination of things. And knowing your breed
Hmm.
and what your breed's tendencies are and what we bred them to do
Hmm.
would be
Hmm.
very helpful in tackling any of that undesirable behavior. But again, training can only go so far. And some of it is just going to be that you need to be able to manage the environment in certain situations.
Right.
um, so you can't necessarily train the problem away if it is deeply enough rooted. The other aspect of that, though, is our bandwidth as the
Hmm.
owners, right? If
Hmm.
you are working 60 hours a week and have two young children and you're having problems with your dog, that is a big project to take on when you've got all of that going on in your life.
That's right.
And, recognizing whether or not you're going to be able to put in the work in order for the dog to live in harmony with your home
Hmm.
is really important. Or if recognizing that it may take longer because you can't be as consistent or put in as much time in the training part because there's just not that room in your life.
I got you. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And if that busy adult is willing to put in the time and acknowledge that it's going to take more time because of their low bandwidth, then I guess that's fine as long as they put in the work. I think
Hmm.
you raised a very good point, Stephanie, regarding the importance of understanding the breed as well, right? Because
Hmm.
in my experience, and very minuscule experience with dogs compared to professional dog trainers, but with the dogs that I've had over the years, understanding their breed when it comes to how much attention they need, how much attention they crave, or are they the type of dog where you just you know put them in a room with a chew toy and they're good, and when you come in they're happy to see you, when you leave they're not anxious. And getting, I guess, having a desire to attain the breed that is conducive to your lifestyle and your
Hmm.
schedule, is that also something to take into consideration for someone looking for a dog?
It is, and that can be a little bit challenging
Hmm.
because not everybody gets their dog from a breeder.
Right.
um, you know, and sometimes the shelters don't, well, most times the
Hmm.
shelters do not know the breed.
Right.
So the breeds that are put out there are their best guess based on what they're seeing in the dog
Yeah.
physically, usually, not even behaviorally.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so it can be hard when you want to rescue an animal to be able to kind of do your due diligence and make sure that you're at least not getting a breed that is going to be contrary to what you need the dog to be. right?
Got it. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but all dogs, I mean, they're living, breathing, sentient creatures, and so all dogs need time. So it is
Mhm.
not, it's not a little robot that you put up on the shelf and then take down when you have time for them.
Right. That's
And
right.
for, it would be, in some ways it might be nice, but they they need our attention just as much as we enjoy their attention. And
Mhm.
they have needs, and we, as responsible dog owners, we need to step up to the plate and provide them with the needs that they have, right?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I walk my dog twice a day, and I know she's she's only 9 months old, but my goodness, she has a ton of energy, and so the walk does her good, it does me good, and, if she
Hmm.
goes a day without a walk and it's like, say, 7 or 8 in the evening, she's a little hard to deal with, you know? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
she really is, and, I
Well,
mean,
she's one of those adolescents that we were talking about earlier.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. No, that's right. She is. Oh my goodness, and they can have the same behaviors as human adolescents. To your point that you mentioned earlier, Oh my gosh, Stephanie. One of the fascinating things that I was thinking of as you were just explaining a minute ago regarding the adolescents is uh, dogs seem to have a balance between there's a side of them that lives in the moment, you know,
mhm.
and they're so in the moment where you can chastise them for, I don't know, chewing up the sofa, bad dog, you can't blah 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 blah, and then you leave the house and you go to the store, you get a cup of coffee, and then you come back, and as soon as you walk in the door, they're just as happy. Their tails wagging, they're shaking, they're happy to see you. It's not like, oh no, I'm still pissed off at you. You cussed me out before you left. No, they are happy to see you. I mean, and it's like all's forgotten under the bridge, So there's one side of them that lives in the moment. And then there's another side from, like you said earlier, the repetition, whether it's the environment, good practices or bad practices that kind of gets ingrained,
Mhm.
that becomes the source of the behavior. So like if someone I had a friend of mine who had a dog that did not like guys who wore baseball caps. I
Mhm.
mean, the a guy would come walking down the street wearing a baseball cap and "Rawr," and growling and everything. And it went back to history where the previous owner had a baseball cap and abused her, and
Mhm.
so that happened enough to where it's ingrained in her like a memory, to where
Mhm.
it surfaces in present time. So, can you speak a little bit about that balance that dogs have between living in the moment and and some of that learned behavior and from memory?
Yeah. I'm not quite sure how to explain, because in many cases you're right, where you can scold your dog, and 5 minutes later you come walking in the room and they're like, "Oh, hi, how are you? It's good to
Y-
see you."
Yeah.
Um, at the same time, that repetition of that scary or painful behavior, whatever it is, will cause your dog to lose its resiliency. And that's
Mm,
what you're talking about when they're like, "Oh, okay, everything's fine."
yeah.
That's a resilient dog. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when they are constantly, you know, being optimistic, but being proven wrong, that
Hmm.
is going to change their ability to kind of bounce back from that.
Mm,
Um, and some dogs are naturally more resilient than others. You can
right.
help promote resiliency in dogs.
Hmm.
But again, there is that genetic component where, a dog that's not resilient, you may be able to get them better, but you're probably not going to have a bomb proof dog.
Okay.
Um, and some dogs are just, they have so much resiliency
Hmm.
that you hear about the dogs that were rescued from abuse cases and they get rehomed and they are just so optimistic and they love everybody.
Yeah.
And yet, having gone through such a horrible experience, that has not changed them.
Wow.
And so, you have a spectrum basically that you're working with. And that might be a theme that goes through our conversation today, because it really is about a spectrum when it comes to behavior. Most aggression cases, because you asked me about aggression and what
Hmm.
might cause it,
Hmm.
is it actually stems from fear.
Okay.
I've heard different numbers thrown out there, anywhere from 70 to 90%, depending on who's talking about it. But
Right.
the majority of those behaviors we call aggressive
Hmm.
are really the dog being fearful and trying to scare the scary thing away.
I see. I see.
Um, so very infrequently do you actually find a situation where a dog is just out to kill something.
Right. Right.
And that would be what I would call a true aggression case. Otherwise, we're looking at the fight, flight, freeze, or fidget
Yes.
kicking in, and they happen to be the fighters.
Yeah.
So they're barking, lunging, growling, snapping, trying to get the scary thing away,
Hmm.
so that it doesn't get them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, self-preservation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even, I mean,
Exactly.
even dogs do it. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, especially, yes, any living creature will do it, right?
Yes.
Self-preservation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, can you break down the difference between, let's say, a dog who is anxious from, and then this is going to kind of segue into your role as a separation anxiety professional trainer. Um, is there a difference between um, the anxiety a dog feels, and I'm going to give my dog as an example. She's getting better, by the way, with this, but um, emergency vehicles, police, cars, fire trucks going down the street with their lights and the sirens on, okay,
Mhm.
sets her off. Um, Thunder and lightning, of course. And we happen to live maybe 100, 200 yards from railroad tracks where, a train comes by. When it hits an intersection, I mean, it's a loud horn, and you hear the horn, and that kind of sets her off as well. So there's that anxiety, okay? And
Mhm.
then there's the separation anxiety, I guess, when you leave a dog for too long. And I'm wondering, is there a difference between the two types of anxieties? And if so, is it the same method or practice as a separation anxiety trainer that you would do to address those?
So, first of all, I should say that I don't specialize in noise phobias. I have worked with some noise phobia cases, but very minimally. So I don't specialize in that.
Okay.
But it seems to me like this is a difference in triggers.
Hmm.
Whereas we're still talking about anxiety leading to panic,
Hmm.
and which means that this is an emotional response to something in the environment, whether that
Hmm.
is the railroad tracks, the horns. It could be the vibrations on the ground when the train goes by.
Right.
There's so many factors for what you described that could be coming into play, um, or it is there are people leaving. Right, they're convinced that this is unsafe,
Yeah.
and um, the way that I work with separation anxiety is very slowly, systematically desensitizing the dog to the different steps so that they learn. We keep them under threshold, under that panic point, maybe a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, but no
Mhm.
panic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're still able to think, so they're still able to learn that actually absences are not disastrous. It is not the end
Right.
of life.
Right.
Nothing is going to come and kill them.
Yeah.
And then they can actually start learning that do come back and nothing bad happens to them.
Right.
So it's really about desensitizing them to the trigger.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, what works best is to be able to break that trigger down into baby slices.
Mhm.
So, for example, when you're talking about separation anxiety, you may be breaking down that leaving process into all of those different steps. So, if you're leaving and you pick up your keys, you put on your shoes, you grab your coat, you walk out into the garage, you open the garage door, you get in the car. Those are a lot of steps. And
Mhm.
so you need to break them down and desensitize the dog to all of those different things. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, it's a little bit harder when you can't control the train that's going through the intersection.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
because I would want to control things like the train speed and the
Yes.
volume of the horn
Yes.
and how big it is or how
Mhm.
long it lasts and all of those types of things. So
Mhm.
sound phobias can be a little bit harder um, to break down in that way, but I think that it's the same process. What you don't want to do is, put the dog in the situation and just expect them to deal with it. And what frequently happens is it's called flooding, and the dog just becomes overwhelmed and shuts down,
Mm.
and not making any progress
Mhm.
in that situation. In fact, it actually increases the fear because in a lot of dogs because they can't do anything about it. They can't stop it.
Mm, I see. I see. Wow. And it's called flooding, right?
Yes, it's when you basically just put the dog in the situation and expect them to deal with it.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I don't know if that's negligent or abusive or maybe just ignorant on the part of the human. I don't know. But when you put it that way, it oh gosh, it makes me feel so bad for the poor dog in that situation. Um, wow, wow. So
Yeah. It can be
yeah,
tough. And
yeah,
those noise phobias are really tough. Getting the sounds and playing them at lower levels,
yeah.
having white noise when you know that stuff is happening.
Right, right.
Fireworks are a big thing.
Yeah,
Fireworks are
mhm.
huge.
Yeah, that too
So
was big. Yeah.
yeah, if you know a thunderstorm is coming and a fireworks are happening, maybe you
Hmm.
can use, some sound machines to help with that. Do
Hmm.
some
Hmm.
desensitization beforehand, um, starting at low volumes for those noises. The
Hmm.
thing is that usually things like thunderstorms are also accompanied by things like um, air pressure changes, and
Yes.
you can't fix that. You can't desensitize to that, right? It
No.
either is
Right.
the pressure or it's a different pressure.
Yes.
So
Yes. And I hear that dogs they are very much in tune with like the vibration of the ground or
mhm.
like our backyard we have this big glass patio door that slides and beyond our backyard is a big wide open field and then a heavily wooded area and there's coyotes out there and so I was told that my dog can sense when the coyotes are out there. I may not be able to see them or hear them, but she can sense that, and it causes her to like look out the glass door, which is nothing but pitch black dark, and start barking.
There's something
um,
out there.
yeah,
It's one of the
there's
reasons why we have our dogs, right? To kind of
yeah,
let
that's
us
right.
know when there's something to be concerned about.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And the reason why I said earlier that I believe my dog is getting better with over time when it comes to the sirens and the train, thunder and lightning still have to work with, and that's kind of hard, like you said to your point, air pressure. But with the trains and at least the sirens is most of the times when she hears those it's in the evening and my wife and I we're at home in the evening and so when
Mm.
she hears it, whether it's the train or the siren, and we're here and we give the disposition of hey, everything's fine. We're going about our
Yep.
life and nothing out of the ordinary is happening, it's not DEFCON 5 and or
Right.
1, and she sees that and notices that about us. And so now when the train, toots its horn, she doesn't as much growl or bark or go hysterical, Same with the siren. I mean, is do you think that's the reason why it's slowly getting better over time?
Yeah, I think that your modeling is helping,
Okay.
and any reassuring that you had given her in the past.
Mhm.
We have a cue in our house. It's just the TV,
Mhm.
because we used to have a dog, that every time there was a doorbell or a
Yeah.
drill noise, or some kind of noise that she couldn't identify,
Yeah.
would happen on the TV,
Mhm.
um, she would lose her mind,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so, it was getting better with the calm, but then we just decided, okay, let's name this. It's just the TV,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now she may kind of go, "Ugh,"
Yeah.
but then we say it's just the TV, and
Right.
she's like, oh, okay. And that's if she even reacts at all, because now she's started to realize that,
Mhm.
oh, you know, that sounds a little bit different,
Right.
or and so part of it is basically conditioning, just like we're conditioned to all of the weird, crazy things that go around
Yeah.
on around us.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
learn how to tune it out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we're not paying attention to the fact that you know this is the sirens are happening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Since
that's
they
right.
don't phase us anymore, we just know, okay, well, that's going to be bad for somebody, but we're
Right.
fine.
Yes.
um
Yes.
and so we are conditioned to pay attention to certain things as opposed to other things, and then just kind of drown the other stuff out or block the other stuff out because it is not important information. And so by modeling that for our dogs, we can teach them that, all of the crazy things that go on with our human world, they're really not as scary or as important. It's not their business. They don't
Right.
need to be concerned about it.
Yeah.
And some dogs do that better than others, and some humans do that for their dogs better than others. So,
Very true.
um,
Yeah.
but we always have to remember they were not, yes, we've had them with us, but think of the world now as compared to 50 years ago or 100 years ago. It's very different.
Mhm.
They are genetically engineered to be in a completely different environment than what we're asking them to be in now.
Mm.
Um, and so we have to kind of take that into consideration and kind of help them understand what in this world is a problem and what in this world is not something they need to worry about.
Mm. Very true. Very, very true. I'm glad you pointed that out. It's to some degrees selective, or what's the word I'm thinking of? Discerning, right? In what things are problematic and other things that are just should be tuned out or prioritizing, I
Hmm.
guess. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
awesome. That is awesome. So I wanted to know. Um, it's been said that you know having a dog can improve one's self-esteem or improve one's mood, and obviously can help one's heart, I mean, with daily walks and so forth. And for someone who, I don't want to say is depressed, but someone who may be a bit down or blue, and say they live alone, I mean, to have a dog that can help lift their spirits, that's what I've heard. But at the same time, isn't there a certain mood level or disposition that that person should have to be equipped for providing the type of environment to where they can be and have a cohesive living arrangement with their dog?
Well, I think for sure, at the very least, they need to be in a position where they can care for themselves and another creature, another being.
Right.
If they are struggling daily just to get out of bed,
Hmm.
then they are not. they're not in a place where they're ready to bring any animal into their home, because that
Right.
animal is going to need care. And so if they're struggling to care for themselves, then that would be a red flag for me. Having
Okay.
said that, I know a lot of many of my clients suffer from different disabilities, and they actually do have more fulfilling lives with their dogs. Um, it can also have the opposite effect, though. If you are having behavior issues with your dog, or you're dealing with separation anxiety with your dog, and you can't leave your dog alone
Yeah.
to go out with friends,
Hmm.
or you can't take your dog on a walk because he's going to lose its mind at everything that passes,
Yeah.
that can actually be very isolating, and really cause people to feel very alone and like they're the only person that has this situation. And so it can be really, really, it can have the opposite effect of building people up and improving their moods. It can actually make things very difficult, even for the most able-bodied, you know, mental health wise healthy person,
Yeah.
um, because it feels like you're all by yourself,
Yeah.
and you don't know what to do, and you love the dog, um, and so you're just kind of at your wits' end.
Mm, gotcha. I see. And that makes sense. I mean, it can be a very isolating feeling, I'm sure. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I wanna get your thought on this because I've had a friend of mine, and most of my friends who are pet owners, they've said, and they relate to their dog as, there's like their child, right?
Hmm.
And they say, hey, daddy will get you something to eat, or mommy will get you something to eat, or mommy will take you for a walk. Um, and this one particular friend of mine, she said, I heard she had 2 dogs. She says, "I'm not their mom. I am not their mom. Um, you know, we live together, and I feed them, I take them for walks, and I show them where their places are in the house, and when they go out, I let them out." I mean, and she loves her dogs,
Hmm.
but I mean, what is the true relationship dynamic? Is it like, mommy or daddy, or is it living companion, or is it whatever works for that living environment?
I think whatever works for that living environment, whether you call
Okay.
yourself a pet parent,
Mhm.
mommy, daddy,
Mhm.
an owner, a guardian,
Mhm.
um, it's about not what you're naming that relationship, but what that relationship is.
Okay.
And so, some people view their relationship more as a parenting role, and
Mhm.
that's going to kind of, to me, it's more about what their understanding of parenthood is versus ownership, guardianship,
Mhm.
um, and that's a distinction that the individual makes.
Okay.
Um, but ultimately, we have a responsibility to make sure that we are taking care of all of our dog's needs, and those are not just physical.
That's right.
They have emotional needs, and they need to feel safe.
Mhm.
And it's not just about. I actually just did a blog post about this. About it's not just about making sure they have their annual or biannual vet visits and their
Right.
vaccinations, and then they have
Right.
food and dinner and go potty
Yeah.
however many times a day.
Right.
Um, that there's so much more to their needs. And regardless of what you call yourself, if you're fulfilling those needs,
Mhm.
then you're having a great relationship with your dog.
That's good. That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. One of the last questions I have for you, Stephanie, is, are there things that we can learn about ourselves when observing our pet's behavior, or say another, someone else's pet's behavior at different times, whether it's, um, having the dog out in public, or just walking down the street, or just sitting in the living room watching TV? Is there anything we can learn about ourselves when watching their behavior?
Well, I think every living creature is always learning. So,
Hmm.
yes, I think that there are things that we can learn about ourselves. Um, Dogs are their first language, so to speak, is body language.
Hmm.
And many times they recognize things in us
Hmm.
that we are either choosing to or are just oblivious to. We're either choosing to ignore them or are oblivious to them being there. And so sometimes their actions can kind of help us be a little bit more introspective. Um, I know that when I'm starting to feel like I'm a little bit overwhelmed or there's a little bit too much on my plate, that is when my dog will decide that nap time is over and he needs to come and, um, come and sit by me. If I've been
Yeah.
on the computer too long,
Uh-huh.
he'll come and put his head right under one of my arms that I'm typing with and flip his nose to get me to stop.
Hmm.
And it is only then that I will realize, oh yeah, I'm needing a break.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I think that our dogs can tell us a lot if we do take the time to listen. Sometimes our first language is not body language, at
Hmm.
least not dog body language, and so we miss a lot of the early signs.
Hmm.
Because when we start noticing is when it's the obvious stuff, and particularly the undesirable stuff. We'll notice that a dog is uncomfortable or concerned about something when the growl happens,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But there's several steps and ways that they have displayed that they're concerned before that happens.
Before that, I
Um,
see.
and we just don't notice it because we're not really paying attention to those subtle signs. And that's
Mm.
one of the things that I work a lot with my clients on.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, because so many things, if you're stepping in earlier and you're being proactive, you can stop the fight between the two dogs that live together from happening, or you can stop the reactivity to the dog on the leash, simply by addressing it early enough and giving the dog what it needs in order to feel safer. So I work a lot with helping them understand their dogs better.
Wonderful. Fantastic. So, how can the listeners connect with you and learn more about Dogpanions and the great services that you provide?
So I do have a website, dogpanions.com.
Okay.
That's where my blog goes up. But
Hmm.
I'm also on Facebook, and that is Dogpanions USA.
Hmm.
Um, that's my business page.
Hmm.
And then Instagram is just at Dogpanions. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. A lot of stuff. I know you're not supposed to do this on social media, but a lot of cross posting.
Yeah.
So you don't have to follow me on all of these things. It'll probably be a lot of the same information. But I'm on LinkedIn at Stephanie-Barger-Dogpanions. And then where
Nice.
we met, I'm on Alignable.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah, so that's where we managed to connect. So
Yeah.
different places. A lot of my posts tend to be on the educational side, trying to help people out there with dogs get
Hmm.
more information on how to live a better life with their dog.
Fantastic. And we're going to make sure and place direct links to your social mediums on the episode show notes, so the listeners can directly click those links as they're listening to this awesome conversation to learn more about you while they're hearing the conversation. So, man, good stuff for sure. Stephanie Barger, thank you so much for coming on the show. I would be thrilled if you can come back, say 6 or 8 months later, and give the listeners an update in what's going
Oh,
on
I
with
would
Dog
love
Panions.
that.
Would you?
Yeah, I would love that. Yes, this has been
Okay.
great. I really enjoyed this talk.
Oh, well, thank you. I have equally enjoyed it, and really appreciate your time today, Stephanie. Stephanie, we are now about to go into a segment I like to call Three for the Road. And in Three for the Road, that's where I ask my guests 3 random yet thought-provoking questions, and I challenge them to answer each one in 5 words or less. So what do you say? You think you're up for it?
I'll give it a try. This part has kind of made me think a lot since we decided to do this. So we'll see if I can keep it to 5.
Okay. Nope, fantastic. So my questions are not cookie cutters, okay? I don't ask the same questions to every guest, so it's based on their specialty and their profession. So here we go with question number 1 for Three for the Road, all right? Okay. In fact, you know what? All 3 questions are going to surround the mind of the dog, okay? Pretend that you are inside the mind of a dog, and you are like the narrator. I don't know if you
Oh,
ever
wouldn't that
saw.
be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah. I don't know if you ever saw the older movie from, I guess, the 80s or 90s called Look Who's Talking.
Mm-hmm.
Kirstie Alley and John Travolta. The baby was the voice of Bruce Willis, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So and there was some narration there, right? So in the mind of a dog, okay, I'm going to give you a situation, and then you tell me in 5 words or less what that dog is thinking. Okay. So the first situation, you are on a busy street, on a busy sidewalk of a town, have your dog on a leash, and a bus stops right at the corner where you are to let people out. What is going through the dog's mind at that time?
Oh. It stops right in front of us.
Yeah. Right at the corner. You're waiting to cross the crosswalk.
Oh, see, that's so hard because it depends on the breed.
Let's say your dog. Let's use your dog.
Ooh, people.
Ooh, people. Yeah. Just very excitable, right?
Yes.
Ooh, people. I like it. Okay.
He loves people.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So the next situation. You and your dog are stranded on an island, and the territory is completely unfamiliar to both of you, and it starts to get dark for the first night. What's going through your dog's mind then?
Probably something very similar to what's going through mine.
I'm sure.
Take cover.
Take cover. Okay. Yeah. Protect yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic. All right. So the third question to top us off for Three for the Road. You are going over a friend's house with your dog to see their new baby. And your dog lays his eyes on the new baby for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
What is going through your dog's mind then?
What the heck is that?
I like that. What the heck is that? That's 5 words. Oh, fantastic. Well, Stephanie, you knocked this one out of the park. The first, let's see, the first and second question, I think you still had some words to spare. So,
yes, I did.
Yeah, you did. So thanks so much for Three for the Road. Again, you knocked it out of the park, and you know your dog quite well. In what's going through his mind when those situations like those happen. God forbid situation number 2 doesn't happen to you and your dog.
Yeah, let's fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Let's hope that doesn't happen anytime soon, right?
Exactly. Ever.
That's right. Oh, fantastic. Great. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And look, if you have a loved one or a colleague, relative, friend who seems to be down and out, seems to not have any direction or anywhere to turn, just going through dark days of despair, I humbly ask that you please share this show with them, because on the road to rediscovery, we want our listeners to understand 2 things. Number one, you're not alone. And number two, there is always hope. The road to rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have. The Road to Rediscovery is an AJ Shark production.